Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll speak with two local residents featured in a PBS documentary about aging and about how art can and maybe should be a part of that process. Actors Candace and Raye Birk let us in on their experience with the film before a screening at the Senior Center in Northampton later this week.
And word nerd Emily Brewster, local Wordster senior editor for Merriam-Webster here in Springfield, tackles a listener question about gifting and appreciation.
And vegetables.
Does the snow on the ground not indicate that this is the wrong time of year for that?
Says you, but there's a farm in Hadley that knows otherwise.
Time for a local hero spotlight at Winter Moonroots Farm in Hadley. Emphasis on the winter, and we're here with the relatively new head farmer of Winter Moonroots Farm. What's your name, sir?
Rosendo Santizo.
Mucho gusto. Tell us about your relationship with this farm.
I started working here like 14 years ago, and I worked like 12 years with Michael Doctor, and then I take over 2 years ago, finally.
Michael Doctor was one of the first guests on these local hero spotlights on our show, The Fabulous 413, when we went to Mi Tierra, which is something that kind of grew out of Winter Moonroots Farm and then took over his life by and large, and then he can hand the farm over to you, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us why it's called Winter Moonroots and about why we're here in the winter at a farm, which is not oftentimes when people think of the agricultural season being at its height.
Winter Moonroots, I think Michael put this name because we grow just vegetable for the winter market. We start selling November through March. And we grew just roots and like carrots, beets, parsnips, turnip, radishes.
Did he always want to just do winter vegetables?
Yeah, Rosendo, tell us a little bit about why that makes sense for a farm.
So, like in winter, it's really, really hard to find like local food, organic vegetables around. So we're thinking about having available like local food.
Without having to do a greenhouse necessarily to get the springier things that you would want in the winter.
Yeah, I've seen in the 20 years that I've been here the increase in local food of all types because of hothouses, because of greenhouses. So you can get local greens right now when maybe 20 years ago that would have been harder to do. But really, when you think about the winter vegetables, it's turnips, it's beets, carrots, and things like that.
And that's a lot of what Winter Moonroots is growing. And I think what's different about this farm is, for one thing, the scale, the amount of all these things that they're growing. And another thing that's different is, Rosendo, could you talk a little bit about, there's not one, not two, but at least 3 farms that are using this land and some of these buildings.
So this building is being shared with 2 other farms. Next Barn Over operate here in the summer, and Winter Moon operate here in the winter. And also we have many graces, which is like flower stuff.
Yeah, we did a segment with them months ago, and they're still operating right now, a couple doors over from Winter Moonroots Farm.
A couple barns over.
Yeah,
barns
they have some greenhouses down in the fields.
Jacob, that's a different farm.
They're the next
This
barn
is the
over
next
from
barn.
Next Barn Over Farm.
Yeah.
So I think that's another one of the reasons that this makes sense to be doing stuff in the winter, is that these farms can cooperate and share a lot of the same equipment and a lot of the same land. I don't know if maybe you mentioned that your harvest is sort of concentrated in this window in November, December. Do you employ some of the same people that maybe work?
A few people come with us to harvest, and other people like have jobs already for winter.
Yeah.
Tell us about the way that the climate has changed in the time that you've been farming here at Winter Moonroots Farm. Some of your turnips just got pulled out of the ground in December, right?
Parsnips.
Oh, parsnips.
So, I remember when I started working here, let's say 14 years ago, started snowing in November 1st, November 5, and now, it's changing a lot. I was able to harvest parsnips 3 weeks ago, which is unbelievable. The global warming is affecting us right now because our vegetables have a high quality because, we wait at the last minute to harvest. So the cold make everything sweet, and we wait for that. And right now, if it's not cold, means our vegetables is not going to taste the same. So it means we're going to wait for longer.
It's cold now, though, so I'm sure all those things are sweet.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rosendo, but they're sweet because the plant is, as it gets colder, it's putting more and more sugar into the root so that the root itself does not freeze, and so that survives. And so the longer you can wait before taking them out of the ground, the more sugar is in there.
Yes, that's true. An example on parsnip. If you eat a parsnip like in August or September, the parsnip doesn't taste like...
They're woody.
Yeah, and that's not like the right flavor. And then if you try those parsnip in November or December, it tastes a little bit sweet. And if you try the parsnip in March or April, it's the best parsnip. Tastes like fried plantains. I'm not joking. Yeah.
Note to self.
But yeah.
Gotta wait.
The texture does change too. Like the sugars help make it more palatable. You get that woodiness because you're getting it too early. And when the sugars concentrate, it's much easier to cook, much easier to handle.
Rosendo, you did not grow up with the snow, despite the fact that we're at a farm where it's snowing and that you're growing vegetables that you're waiting for the cold here at Winter Moon Roots in Hadley.
So, I grew up in Guatemala. I came here when I was like 18 years old. Yeah, I never saw snow in, growing like 1 to 18. And then finally I saw snow in the ground. I was very surprised about that. Oh, finally I see snow. After watching movies, reading books about snow.
How quickly did the shine wear off from that novel?
Are you sick of snow?
No, I love snow. I really, really love snow.
Well, let's take a little tour of Winter Moon Roots Farm, because you have an incredible operation of how you get this mass volume of locally grown carrots out to the different markets.
So, okay, I'm going to open this door, and then we're going to see our washroom. We have conveyor belts, barrel washer, and the packing machine.
All the carrots get loaded on this conveyor belt, goes into this drum and gets washed, and goes up another conveyor belt, and then gets measured out into 25-pound bags over there.
Yes, that's correct.
Pretty
25-pound bags?
Yeah,
right?
25-pound bags.
Is that for the CSA or is that for wholesale?
It's for wholesale.
Okay. That's a lot to get.
Yeah.
for CSA.
You're gonna turn orange if you eat that many carrots.
What I do with 25
So, true story, last winter I bought a 25-pound bag of Winter Moon Roots. I think it was beets from Atlas Farm Store, and I did not have space in my fridge or in anywhere in my house to store that, and I actually stored it in my car. My car became my root cellar for it took about a month for me to eat that bag down, but they were the best
Did you
beets
eat
I
them while
had all
driving?
year.
It's a
No,
little
they were
messy.
not a road snack, no.
we call that third fridging.
Or you could make like a juice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like
that'd
you
be a
can-
good way to do it.
Where are you leading us now, Rosendo, through this second garage door?
I'm going to show you the cooler system, which is like a unique cooler. We have like a cooler system just for backups. But like right now, the noise you hear is the fan like pouring cold air from outside. So we use like winter cold air to cool down our vegetables.
Inside the cooler at Winter Moon Roots Farm in Hadley with Jacob Nelson from CISA and Rosendo Santizo, the farmer here. And here are the 25-pound bags we were talking about.
Yes, everything is in 25 pounds. We have parsnip, we have radishes, carrots, beets, purple tabs.
And so what's going to happen with these? Where are these going to go?
This morning we delivered to the co-ops, Ruby Valley in Northampton, Ruby Valley in East Hampton, and also we sell to Whole Foods here in Hadley. And the rest is going to restaurants and to Boston.
Because you do farmers markets in Boston, right?
Yes, I do. I do have in Wayland and also in Somerville and in Northampton too.
Do people in the Boston area, do they want other things? Like, do they ask for different things than the people in Northampton?
Like maybe they know carrots, but they don't know parsnips.
No, people know everything. So that's why people's waiting for our roots to go over there. Every time we go over there and then people are like, finally, Winter Moon is here. Oh, I'm waiting for these roots. So it tastes so good.
It's cold outside. It's like in the 20s when we're here right now, but you are trying to keep this cooler at a very particular temperature so that everything stays perfect for as long as possible.
Yeah, so we're trying to keep this like fresh. It's 34, 35 here inside, and we're trying to make this vegetable like thinking they still alive, they still in the ground. So that's how we keep this like very, very fresh. And then, when we wash the vegetables in March, they look like fresh. And people in the store like, oh, are you guys having greenhouse? No. And when you harvest this in November, really? It's fresh. Yeah.
That's a good method. We're gonna leave the cooler where it's warmer.
And this cooler is steaming too.
Yeah.
It's hard to see the walls from all the condensation and steam in here. And I think that's also to keep it moist so they think they're in the soil too, right?
This cooler needs to be like 100% humid.
Yeah.
So that's how this works.
Yeah, it feels like the butterfly place in Deerfield where it's like
Arctic butterflies.
Arctic butterflies. It's the humidity in here, yeah.
The size of your vegetables is ginormous.
Yeah, you were saying you had one that was like the size of Jacob Nelson's head.
A beet.
A beet.
Not a carrot, not a parsnip.
That's a jumbo beet. Like a restaurant love them. Easy to process, easy to chop them, and it's very juicy. It's more meat in there.
What restaurants do you sell to?
So we sell in Northampton, Duty Truth, and also we sell to Nourish Juice and Bar.
Oh yeah. Probably had your juiced beets or whatever there.
I believe it. They make salad, juice, and a lot of good things over there.
Yeah.
Surprised everything got so giant after all of the floods. Like, I haven't seen anything come out of the ground nearby that's as big as what you have in your cooler. Like, seriously, your vegetables are huge.
Yeah,
So cool.
everything is big. Even if we have a rainy season last year was like crazy for all the farmers. Probably I lost like a third, but still.
You lost a third in the flooding?
I lost a third, not in the Florida because the rain.
Oh yeah.
Was too wet.
With Rosendo Santizo from Winter Moon Roots Farm here and Jacob Nelson of CISA. On November, things start to harvest, a very short, compressed harvesting period, and then you're going to the farmers markets and markets, etc. What happens when springtime rolls around? What does your life look like then?
So, it start again, start like getting ready, plowing the fields, putting cover crop in the fields, and, start all over again.
Yeah. So you don't just get to kick back for the spring and the summertime watching the other farmers work in the hot fields. My work is done.
No, not really. I'm busy all the time.
Are you doing cover crops when the other farms that share some of the land here are doing like their general crops? Is that usually the rotation that happens?
So we don't share the lands.
Just the facilities?
Just the facilities.
Okay.
Rosendo, your life through the year has looked a little different the past 2 years. You were saying you're no longer just in charge of growing all the wonderful vegetables we just saw, but since you've taken over ownership, there's a lot of other skills and things that are taking up your time running this business.
So, when you work for someone, like you just do whatever they tell you to do. But then when actually you run your own business, you have to learn a lot of stuff like marketing stuff. You have to learn about how to use computer. I never used computer in my life before, and I'm still learning. And my wife is like helping me a lot with the emails
And taxes.
and taxes. Don't tell me about taxes.
Taxes on the farmer feeds us all, says the Rye Cooter song.
'Cause the taxes on the farmer feeds us all.
What was it like though when Michael Doctor, who's a very well-known farmer in the area, said to you, "Hey, is this something you want to take over from me?"
So that was good of him. I worked for him like 12 years. Finally, one time he said, "Hey, you want to take over at some point? I'm too busy with the tortilla business." At the beginning, I was kind of like scared a little bit. And then I was, okay, yeah, maybe it's a good opportunity. I will take this opportunity. Now, I'm running the business. I'm the owner. And yeah, I'm here. Michael is still doing like biking, bringing vegetables. Like
He famously brings vegetables via bike, even in the wintertime, all over the place.
Yeah, so one time I remember we have like a big trailer to put on his bike, and then he bring to the store like 1,200 pounds. And I told him, Michael, do you think you're a truck or who you think you are? You're not a truck. Like 1,200 pounds. He was crazy,
That makes me just automatically feel just like, okay, well, I'm out of shape.
Yeah.
There are some
2024
pickup
goals.
trucks that I don't think are rated to take 12
Oh,
pounds.
yeah.
I don't think so too.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's still doing delivery by biking, and he offer like every time he called me, hey, do you have vegetables for me to bring to the store today? I was like, yeah.
I'm looking for my workout today. Can you help?
The farmer comes to town.
Rosendo Santizo, farmer owner of Winter Moon Roots Farm in Hadley, and Jacob Nelson from CISA. Thanks to both of them for joining us.
Later in the show, art and aging. Two local actors are featured in a PBS documentary about those topics that will screen at the Northampton Senior Center this Friday. We'll talk with Raye Birk and Candace Barrett Birk.
Up next, we were gifted a question for the word nerd by Penelope in Shelburne Falls, and we appreciate that.
We'll talk to Merriam-Webster's Emily Brewster all about it. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster, our dictionary in Springfield. You are one of our most popular segments, and we get a lot of audience feedback and questions about what you have to offer to this show and your linguistic knowledge. And we'll get to another listener email next week on the show from Mike in Holyoke. But Penelope from Shelburne Falls writes, "Hi, Khalees and Monty. 2 word-related things I would love for Emily Brewster to explain. 1. The evolution of gifted from the current Merriam-Webster definition to mean I was given or someone gave me. 2. The shift from I appreciate you doing X to I appreciate you. Basically, what's the source of these new uses? When? Why?" Penelope in Shelburne Falls. So what do you say there, Emily Brewster?
A good question. The why is often much harder to answer than the, is it happening or what is happening exactly. And gift as a verb does make some people really uncomfortable, but it's been around for 400 years.
As is so often the case with people that get on their high horse about language, then you go to the dictionary, you go to the source, and it's been happening for long. So when was this 400-year-ago use? Do you have that written down in the dictionary somewhere?
Oh, no. Hold, please. Hold.
Put in hold music here. Even dictionary editors look things up in the dictionary, so you should too.
It's an amazing resource.
And this particular one I am looking up in the Oxford English Dictionary.
Because they're wicked old.
Yes.
Well, because they have the first instance in their dictionary. I can look at what our first instance, sometimes they're at odds with one another because we do our own dating research, but we don't include that first example at each entry. And so it's just harder for me to get to.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if Merriam-Webster uses this same example, but here it is. And the spelling is all bizarre, of course, because it's circa 1600. The friends that were together met he, gifted them richly with right good speed.
Oh. What is that from?
It's from a source that is identified as wife in Moral's skin.
Wow.
Reliable.
So this is why we don't include these in our dictionaries. It's way too distracting. I would get so hung up on these, I probably wouldn't be able to do my job because I would just be wandering around these ancient artifacts.
We should mention, while we're talking about language from 400 years ago, Emily Brewster, that not only your kids, but my kids were in Shakespeare's The Tempest over the weekend.
Speaking of 400-year-old language.
Yes. Who did your son play?
My son played Ferdinand. He got married.
How did that feel?
It felt very strange. He's 12.
That's about the right age for the time period they're setting it.
Yeah. Luckily, my
Well,
children...
in the play, he's 16. So,
Yeah.
My son very nearly murdered somebody on stage as Antonio, but was stopped from doing it. And Prospero held a fairy as a slave that he released at the end there. So, it was a morally conflicted weekend for all of us parents of these young Shakespeare players.
I feel like that's most of Shakespeare's work to begin with.
But
definitely. Although my son's character is actually a very, very morally upstanding character. He's very honorable.
He seemed to be, yes. And he
I did appreciate that.
played very well by your son Theo there. Back to the word gift, which is also kind of
We
from...
don't want to keep talking about my favorite Shakespeare play?
Go ahead.
No,
Please do.
Cleese
Cleese didn't come to see it, but I got to see
watching hockey.
Yeah, and I got to see it 4 times, which is way more than any human being should ever see The Tempest in one weekend.
Unless you have different casts, that would be interesting.
It was 2 different casts, so I did
so
saw
you're
2 from
halfway
each
there.
cast. Yes. Anyway,
Living on a prayer.
Back to Penelope's from Shelburne Falls question here: the evolution of gifted from the current Merriam-Webster definition to mean I was given. Gift as a verb, 400 years old.
Then when's the first appearance of given? Is it about the same time?
No, give is a much older word. I assume it goes back to Old English, but let me look at that.
Back to the Oxford English Dictionary.
No, I'm looking at our dictionary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the verb give in English dates back to before the 12th century. So it dates back to Old English. Now, but give, if you think about all the jobs that the word give does, in our dictionary, we list 16 transitive senses, 5 intransitive senses, and there are multiple subsenses listed at most of those. So give does a tremendous amount of work in the language, right? You think about all the different ways you can use the word give. And gift as a verb has this very handy way of being a narrower term. So it definitely has appeal. It's true that if I say, someone gave me this lovely book and someone gifted me this lovely book, they can be understood as being synonyms, as communicating the same exact thing.
Yeah, gift almost has the two meanings in one. If you gift somebody a book, you are giving them a gift. If you just say, I give you this book, you don't get the double whammy of words with both give and gift in one.
Exactly. There is some ambiguity in using simply give.
I don't know that Penelope is particularly angry about the evolution of gifted from the current Merriam-Webster definition to mean I was given or someone gave me. But there is a current Merriam-Webster definition that uses gifted in this way, right? That does say that gift is verbable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Yes. Now, it's also true that this is a use that has increased dramatically in recent years. And so for people to feel like it's new is really reasonable because it is very newly prominent. I feel like even in just the past 5 years or so, it's been magnified much more even in advertising copy or in the text that we read on websites that we go to where, you can gift someone this movie, you can gift someone this album, and we're talking about a digital edition of something. And gift it's just too efficient for it to be passed up by people whose job is to communicate things really efficiently, in my opinion.
Plus, I think that the people who are in those positions now were using that verbiage as like teenagers. And so like now that's standard lexicon for them and like standard language for them. It's just comfortable.
The millennials have taken over the editorial pages of newspapers, and now we're seeing this all the time. Is that kind of what we're saying here, maybe?
I mean, like language evolves like that.
Yeah, as is their right. Yeah. Now, there is another point, a cultural moment that might bear some responsibility for the increase in the use of gift as a verb.
Aha.
There was an episode of a very popular show that aired in January of 1995, and a character named Tim Whatley re-gifts a label maker that Elaine gives him. Do you know what show this is?
Seinfeld.
And then Jerry wants to de-gift some Super Bowl tickets that he gave Tim when he thought he couldn't use them.
Those things make great gifts. I just got one of those for Tim Whatley for Christmas.
Tim Whatley?
Yeah. Who sent you that one?
One Tim Whatley.
No. My Tim Whatley?
The same. He sent it as a thank you for my Super Bowl tickets.
I think this is the same one I gave him. He recycled this gift. He's a regifter.
And so it's like 1995 sees this. It's a really important cultural moment for gift as a verb.
Aha.
Because of regifting and de-gifting, those attaching the prefix to a verb like that, I mean, it kind of increases the verbity of it. Right? Like it's like, not only is this a verb, but you can put a prefix on it, and then you can put the opposite prefix on it, and
sometimes a bird.
It makes it, it really helps it become more settled in the language.
I love that character that you mentioned, Tim Whatley, who does the regifting, is played by Bryan Cranston, who would go on to be even more famous for his
making
role
meth.
Making the blue meth in Breaking Bad.
I am the one who knocks.
He is the danger. And if you hate using gift in this verb way, maybe he's the danger to you there as well from his role in Seinfeld.
You're goddamn right.
I'm curious about the time in the future where pre-gifting becomes a thing.
Well, how would one do that?
I don't know. You give somebody something ahead of, like, hopefully encouraging them to maybe give you something later.
Okay. Or maybe, like, you just give it to them before the holiday.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know.
Yeah. Now, another interesting point here is that the first verb use meant to endow. Like someone was gifted with a beautiful singing voice, for example.
Aha. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
like a spiritual gift, or when like people say, if you've got a gift for music.
Or schools for the talented and gifted, tag
Yeah.
classes.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Those weren't
Yes.
psychologically damaging.
It just reminds me of the bumper sticker from David Malky of Wondermark fame, where it's like, I was an honor student. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, same. Don't put kids in a class called Gifted and Talented and expect it not to haunt them the rest of their lives.
That was psyched to be there. I thought it meant we were getting more work, but that wasn't the case. I was actually disappointed.
Does that predate the gift as a verb, to be given a gift by some sort of perhaps supernatural being?
Yes, that is the first verb meaning. Different dictionaries differentiate between senses in different ways. And so their first sense, at that quote, the one from the Wife in Moral's Skin text, is to endow or furnish with gifts, to endow, invest, or present with as a gift. And they don't specify what kind of gift that is. Yeah, this one, they're gifted with right good speed. So, I don't know, they magically have the ability to go fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Usain Bolt.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, according to the OED, though, by the second decade of the 1600s of that same century, we have gift as a verb being used with the meaning that is in Seinfeld also.
Uh-huh.
I knew it! You're a regifter!
It came very quickly, actually. The sense development happened in short order.
But then
with good speed.
And then is there a 400-year lull until Seinfeld comes out, or what?
Oh, no. The verb use of gift, to give someone a gift, to give someone a present, it's been used all along. It's not like it fell away and then had a resurgence, but it did become markedly more common, about 20 years ago. Oh, gosh, is that 30 years ago now?
Ugh,
Yeah.
You're right. Yep. Wow. Okay. You just did that to all of us.
Sorry.
30 years ago was clearly the 1970s, as everyone knows.
Still, somehow. Still the 70s.
So, Emily Brewster, resident Worcester from Merriam-Webster, our dictionary in Springfield. We know that gifted, in the first part of Penelope's question, is something that's very old, 400 years old. So we should not be too judgmental or critical about it, despite the fact that it had a resurgence in the 90s. The other part of Penelope's question is the shift from, I appreciate you doing X, to I appreciate you. Any research that the dictionary or insight the dictionary has to offer into that transition?
I was not able to do the full amount of research I would want to do on this. What I do know is that appreciate itself has been dramatically increasing over the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. That means in all of its different forms. It's certainly not true that people have stopped saying, I appreciate you helping me with X. People are still saying that, but also people are increasingly saying, I appreciate you as just, I am grateful for you.
So the use of appreciate is appreciating over the last 20 years, which is another totally different use of the word appreciate. But when I hear I appreciate you, I usually hear it in AAVE, African American Vernacular English. I feel like on television shows and in circumstances where...
Letterkenny.
Do they say appreciate you in Letterkenny?
They do say I appreciate.
I was just watching the last season last night.
That's what I appreciate about you.
Yours makes the most delicious trail mix, Katie, and I got to say that's what I appreciate about you.
Is that what you appreciate about me?
It's a recognition of something.
Yes.
Like
Nice.
You've been seen by that person in some way.
You appreciates my metaphors, Katie, and that's what I appreciates about you.
Is that what you appreciate about me?
And we all know that AAVE, African American Vernacular English, or just African American English, is constantly mined by speakers of all the other varieties of English and adopted into the broader language by people who have no idea that it started there.
Yeah. I actually had a long, not fight, but heated preacher talking to the choir about this and habitual or perpetual be with my sister this past holiday.
Really? About habitual be?
Yeah. In similar fashion, the way that it do be like that and it do be that way coming into slang. We were saying basically to each other, if you're using that phrase but can't use habitual be comfortably in other ways, you probably shouldn't be using it nearly as much as you are.
Unless you're Frank Sinatra. And then Italians can use it.
He didn't know that years later he would be influencing Yoda.
Well, and let's clarify what habitual be is. Right? It is the use of be to say that something is continuing to happen or is happening regularly, right? Can you give us an example, Khalees?
He'd be all up in her business, which is why we all get on his case all the time.
There you go.
By habit, like perpetually, continually, she is all up in his business.
Yeah. The example that I saw used for it where I thought it was really good, granted, this is a class of mixed children, like white and black, and they have a picture of Cookie Monster. And so they asked the whole class, who is eating cookies? And the whole class points to Cookie Monster. And then they asked the class, who be eating cookies? And all of the African-American kids point to Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster be eating cookies.
Cookies. And I saw, after Googling it, that on Merriam-Webster's page, merriam-webster.com, there is, it's also referred to as the invariant be. The term invariant be, also known as habitual be and aspectual be, refers to a common feature of African-American English in which the uninflected verb form be, that is just plain be, as opposed to forms of be, like in being, is used to indicate that something occurs frequently or habitually. And the examples that Merriam-Webster gives, the kids be walking to the bus stop. That does not sound normal coming out of my mouth, so maybe its context is key.
Yeah. I've been playing video games until like way late in the night. I need to stop doing this.
But this is interesting, going back to Penelope's original question here, the appreciate you. Does it come from AAVE? Unclear at the moment, but I also love when people take away the A in appreciate you and just say,
appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. I also do love when Squirrely Dan just uses the plural of it for no good reason.
Appreciates you.
You're pretty good at wrestling there, Katie, and that's what I appreciate about you.
Is that what you appreciate about me?
Watch Letterkenny. I think it is one of the most fascinating uses of the English language, albeit Canadian English language, out there right now. It's in its final season, available on Hulu, and I'm doing my best to watch it slowly so as not to let it fade away. Well, Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster, appreciate you and lending all your insights into both these questions from Penelope from Shelburne Falls. And next week on the show, we will get to Mike from Holyoke's question about the suffix ER. But if you are somebody who has a question for the Word Nerd, you can email us at thefab413@nepm.org, and we will ask her on your behalf.
Woohoo! Yay!
Now, like Prospero in The Tempest, I will retire to Millen, and my every third thought will be of my death.
Oh, wow! Are you going to give up all your magic, Monty? Are you going to give up your magic?
Yep.
I don't think that Prospero actually gives up all of his magic
How
at the
could
end
he?
of The Tempest.
How could he? I want to watch The Tempest, too. We should write it.
Is it going to be as good as Hamlet, too?
Maybe.
Will we have a song as good as Rock Me Sexy Jesus in it?
Doubt it.
And up next, a preview of the PBS program Art and Medicine, Healthy Aging, with two of the folks featured in the documentary, actors Raye Birk and Candace Birk.
And a little more Shakespeare, too. You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
I think that in this culture, the attention is given to how to stay youthful as opposed to how to actually age in a healthy way.
I think it's really important to talk about healthy aging because
there are so many of us that are living so much longer now.
This show will explore aging through the lens of art, music, and reflection.
I'm very excited about being old, yet being a carrier of the art form.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. In 2022, Twin Cities PBS debuted a program called Art and Medicine, Healthy Aging. This Friday afternoon at 2 p.m., there will be a screening of this documentary at the Northampton Senior Center.
Two of the Senior Center's newest members, both actors who are featured in the documentary, will be on hand to explore with you healthy aging through what they call the 4 M's framework: mobility, mentation, which is better known as mood and memory, medication, and what matters.
Which only sort of starts with M, but we'll give them a pass.
And there were other M's that it could have been like the 6 or 7 M's if
I
they
know,
really
there
wanted.
were several other M's that they brought in.
Now I want M&M's.
No.
It'd be Mandarin.
You're getting there. You're getting there. It's like you just have to get more comfortable with it. Those two featured actors are with us right now, Raye Birk and Candace Birk. Thank you so much for joining us.
We're thrilled to be here.
Well, this documentary came out of Twin Cities PBS, and I got a chance to watch it, and you'll have a chance to watch it, listener, if you go 2 o'clock at the Senior Center in Northampton this Friday, or you can go to NEPM's website. It lives on NEPM's website as well. But how did you connect with Twin Cities PBS for this documentary? Let's start with you, Candace.
All right. Well, we lived in the Twin Cities. We were both actors and teachers with the Guthrie Theater, and we got lucky with a family doctor who was also the theater's doctor. And Dr. Hallberg, who you see in the documentary, it really believes so strongly that art is part of the healing process, that he, as a very straight-ahead doc from the university, would prescribe books or prescribe plays or concerts as part of what he did to get people well. And he started a project called the Hippocrates Cafe that we were a part of. That kind of turned into art and medicine for PBS. So that's how we got to be a part of it. He used the Guthrie actors to kind of be examples of what he was talking about.
Wait a minute. Your theater company had a doctor on
I know. I was
staff?
thinking that.
You said that immediately. I was like, I should have. There's all this other information, and my brain just went, wait a minute. There's an arts organization that had medical staff.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't exactly medical staff, but it was if someone got sick, we called Doc Hallberg because he was his clinic was across the street, and he was also a physician for the symphony and for a while for the Minnesota Twins.
Oh, wow.
So
he covered it all.
Just in case somebody thought he was getting too arty, we throw in the Twins to get everybody.
Exactly. Right. If you need Tommy John surgery playing King Lear, you know who to talk to.
And could. And his clinic was actually a gallery. So when you go into the clinic, you walked into an art gallery.
And tell me about these cafes, Ray. Like, what were these cafes like that morphed into this documentary?
The Hippocrates Cafes, they were called. They were programs, usually about an hour max, and they would be put together around a specific medical theme. Everything from dealing with cancer, insect bites, the influenza of, and this is pre-COVID, the influenza of 1918. And he would collect poems, stories, diaries, letters that were actual documents that would reflect this theme. And he would have 2 actors and sometimes a singer and 2 musicians. And he would introduce the theme, talk a bit about it, and then ask the actors to read one of the poems about it or read one of the letters or whatever it might be. And these programs were enormously successful. He did well over 100 of them. And we would do them sometimes to open medical conventions. We went to one where we did it at Stanford. What was it about, Candace?
Mary Shelley,
Yeah.
Frankenstein.
Oh.
It was, yeah.
And it had to do with?
The first time people were replacing body parts.
Ah.
We went all the way back, to Mary Shelley, and then other stories of that era, which was, the fact that you could, with electricity, you could bring tissue back to life and things like, and store, so actual documents about that illustrated that for people. Eventually, the local PBS station got wind of this and very interested in it, and tried to create, and indeed did create, a video version of what was the Hippocrates Cafe. They did change the name.
To art and medicine, healthy aging.
Well, part of the reason was that they were afraid people might not understand who Hippocrates was.
He must be a politician.
Well, exactly.
Even though there's a whole oath named after him.
Exactly. They thought people might get mixed up with hypocrites. So,
we are so bad at things.
You can
words.
You can see it with its new name, Art and Medicine, this Friday at 2 p.m. at the Northampton Senior Center, or go to nepm.org right now, and you can watch this documentary featuring Raye Birk and Candace Birk, who are our guests.
You can call it the Hippocrates Cafe in the comfort of your own.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, yes.
What with all that wealth of arts community where you were, what brought you to Western Mass?
our son, who is a professor of medieval history at Smith, and his family, our 3 grandchildren, and his wondrous wife. And so we thought we were like at the time 75, 76, and we thought, while we're walking and talking still and don't have to be burdensome yet, we're going to move while we still can. So we came just literally before the pandemic.
Good timing.
Yeah.
What's remarkable about this documentary is the way that art interacts with the people that are featured in it in response to their aging, what they're doing to maintain their mental health, their overall health. They've got everything from classical Indian dance featured in this documentary, a gospel choir, a string quartet, writers and poets, and visual artists as well. And then both of you who read a poem and do a section of Lear. Now, we were just talking an awful lot about Shakespeare, Raye Birk. Is memorization of these large texts part of what you do to incorporate art into your aging process?
Well, I think memorizing and working on heightened language is demanding and fulfilling. And it's something, obviously, I've been doing throughout my career. I've been doing it for 50 years. So it's a continuation for me of something I've already done. And the business of memorization, it's a little different and a little more challenging as time goes by. But I think it's very healthy to do this. And I do some teaching. And there's a fellow I work with back in the Twin Cities. We work via Zoom. And he's an older guy, does a little acting. But primarily, I think he finds working on, we've been concentrating on Shakespearean sonnets, to master the sonnet form and to be able to do them and be able to communicate them verbally so that it makes sense to the ear and that it has a point. It's not just
rote
verse,
memorization.
Is challenging and very rewarding for him. I find that's true for me as well and of course the teaching of it is equally satisfying.
Should we hear Raye Birk's performance from Lear from the Art and Medicine Healthy Aging documentary that you can see at 2 o'clock at the Northampton Senior Center this Friday or right now at nepm.org? Go for it, Betsy.
Where have I been? Where am I? I were assured of my condition. Pray do not mock me. I am a very foolish, fond old man, 80 and upward, no more or less. And to deal plainly, I fear I am not in my perfect mind. Thinks I should know you and know this man. Yet I am doubtful, for I'm mainly ignorant what place this is, and all the skill I have remembers not these garments, nor I know not where I did lodge last night. Do not laugh at me. For as I am a man, I think this lady to be my child, Cordelia.
Poignant and powerful piece to talk about art and aging and memory with Lear as performed there by Raye Birk, who's featured in this documentary.
But I feel like it's interesting that we were talking about Prospero before that, because I feel like those are the two ends of the aging spectrum that we get most readily in Shakespeare. You have Prospero at one, where he's a little bit more lively at the beginning, and then Lear, who is deteriorating. Was it intentional to do Lear, or was there the option to do another aging figure from Shakespeare for this piece, for the documentary?
Well, this grew, the choice to include it grew out of a program we had done about aging for some senior centers, one of the Hippocrates cafes. And John Hallberg actually picked the material. And so I said, well, yeah, here, let me play a little bit with it. And I helped with the cutting of it. But he, at that point, hadn't thought to include another piece of Shakespeare. So, and of course, I hadn't gotten a chance to play Prospero, but I had played Lear.
Well, let's take a break, and we'll come back and talk more with Raye Birk and Candace Barrett Birk, who've been married since, 1966? Is that correct?
Yeah. That's true.
Wow, that's amazing. And who are featured in this incredible documentary, Art and Medicine, that you can see this Friday at the Northampton Senior Center.
You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith.
And we're having too good of a time with Raye Birk and Candace Barrett Birk, who are featured in this PBS documentary that you can see at nepm.org, or you can see at 2 p.m., not 2 a.m., at the Senior Center. The very family-friendly and senior-friendly time of 2 p.m. at the Northampton Senior Center. And we have heard the piece from Raye doing Lear, but Candace, you do a wonderful poem by Mary Oliver in the play that is a little bit too long for what we have left in the show, but you do have another Mary Oliver poem that you will gift us with right now.
Well done. Yeah, I don't know. Mary Oliver just talks to us, right, about how to live a life. And she has a poem that she actually called Instructions for Living. And it's this. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it.
I love it.
How great is that in terms of, like, how do you want to live your life? Yeah?
And that's what's remarkable about this documentary, to see how the different arts, plays, poetry, writing, visual arts is incorporated. How important is it to you to continue in the arts? You've now you come here, worked with Chester Theater Company, and continuing to do your work acting. How is that important as you are in your 80s now, late 70s?
I'm 80.
Yeah. I'm 79.
Okay. Congratulations.
So, thank you. Well, I think it's enormously important because it's how we've lived our lives. But also, like in the documentary, as you say, you see a lot of people who are doing what their art form, who do it as a profession. But it can be recreational, it can be therapeutic. And one of the great things about the Northampton Senior Center here is that they offer all these classes and all of these artists who are actually working there. They always have a featured artist each month. And so we have found that to be a kind of home for us, that their staff and the people who come there are all right on board with this idea that the arts feed us. The arts are a way in. The arts are a way to age, not to stay young, but to age well.
I know we only have a few minutes left, and that it's a different locale and all, but have you met anybody in the medical profession here who has a similar passion for the arts that you encountered in the Twin Cities?
I don't think we have.
Not yet.
So if you're listening, doctors and nurses and more, you can apply with the Birks here.
Right.
We have met a lawyer who's on board.
Okay.
So, and a real estate agent.
And these two will be available to answer your questions at the Senior Center in Northampton if this is something that you want to pursue. And I'll also mention that, Raye, you'll be teaching acting classes as well, starting in the middle of February, going through April 8th at Bombyx, an actor's workshop every Monday.
That's right. I'm sort of testing the waters here to see how many people out there are interested in improving their skills as actors. I've always taught, and I'm looking forward to being able to continue to do that here.
Your resumes are both remarkable. The Oregon Shakespeare Festival with Candace and so much more. But I would be remiss not to say that Raye not only is Pap Schmear in the Naked Gun movies, which you should go see.
In Buckaroo Banzai.
Buckaroo Banzai, which we had John Lithgow
Indeed.
on, and we basically had to do all of our best not to only talk about Buckaroo Banzai. So
That's the first movie I ever did.
Really?
Buckaroo Banzai.
Well, it's delightful.
Did you have lots of prosthetics?
I did, actually.
You were a reporter in that, right?
I was a reporter and unrecognizable as a red lectern.
I can't wait to go back and watch it. He was on the X-Files, a bunch of other great stuff. Thank you so much, Raye Birk and Candace Birk.
Thursday on the Fabulous 413, there's a nation-spanning organization that chronicles and reimagines songs at the center of the Black experience in America, and it's got a branch right here in the Berkshires.
We'll speak with the people behind the Black Legacy Project about bringing all folks together through sound.
We'll also be eating better, too, as we explore vegan breakfasts with the Humane Society, who is working with Smith College Dining Services.
And if you've got a question for U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, email us, thefab413@nepm.org. This is the end credits for Buckaroo Banzai, which is the best end credits of all time. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.